You made a presentation on how you went for 12 months traveling as a nomad as you're raising millions of dollars.
People were saying this in 2023, survive until 25. Screw that. I'm going to thrive until 2025. So I packed up my whole operation and I said, I can raise capital from anywhere in the world. I was still able to raise $5.5 million.
All right, welcome back to the show. So today's guest, Michael Wagman. He's the founder of Nimble Capital Group, a boutique private equity firm focused on multifamily value add and ground up development. He's also the host of Beyond the Deal podcast and head coach at Capital Racing Pro. You're also a dubstep music producer, so quite a character with a lot of talents. And he's also been a mentor for me. We actually met at a mastermind a couple months back, and he's been helping me a lot with my capital raising. So I'm super excited to have you here, bro.
Thanks so much for having me. That was one heck of an intro. I appreciate it.
So let's get started here. Why don't you tell us how you got into real estate and then how you got into capital raising and what's your journey been like? Because it's been quite unique. You made a presentation on how you went for 12 months out of the year traveling as a nomad as you're raising millions of dollars. So I just want to get into all of that and hear your story.
Sure. Yeah, that is certainly my most recent claim to fame, but I guess we can backtrack it a little bit to the beginning. So when I graduated college, I mistakenly thought that jobs would just be waiting for me and that it would just be so easy. Here I have this nice 4-year piece of paper that says I'm hireable. And it turns out I wasn't at all. So I had no real previous experience. I had just gone down the traditional path that they tell you to do. And I ended up with a piece of paper that wasn't, a degree that wasn't worth the piece of paper it was written on. And I was completely unhireable. So I was applying to jobs for probably the better part of a year before I just said, screw this. And I actually left the US. So this is a repeating theme in my life, you will see. But I actually moved abroad. I moved to Tel Aviv, Israel, where I worked in the high-tech industry. Because if you can speak English, there's like throw a rock and hit a startup in Tel Aviv. So I ended up working in high-tech sales pretty quickly and selling to American companies over the telephone. And I loved it. And I got, really, really good sales training. It was kind of Wolf of Wall Street-esque in the beginning. There was like 60 of us in this big room, and there was, a coach teaching you how to, listening into your calls and teaching you what to say. And so really, really excellent sales training that I got there. But after about 3 years, I realized that I don't like being told what to do. I don't know whether it's just something in my blood or what is, but I like being my own boss, and I tend to think maybe I have better ideas than the people who are telling me what to do. So I only lasted 3 years in the corporate world, so to speak, before I said, enough of this. I'm going to move back to the US. I'm going to buy a house. So how did I get into real estate? The simple answer is I had been watching too much HGTV. There's no better way to say it. This was back in like 2016, 2017 timeframe. The flipper flop shows and the fixer uppers, those were super popular at the time. And I had just been watching too much of them. And I again, the theme comes back where I was like, I could do that better. That's what I thought. So I had been watching the shows and I said, I could do that better than they could. And I was 25 years old and I guess too stubborn to fail. So I went out and I took that little pile of money that I'd made. I had never heard of raising capital. I'd never heard of using other people's money for real estate. I took all of my own cash and I bought my first little house in Florida where I moved at the time, and I flipped it and I made a tiny bit of money, like a very, very tiny bit of money. But it was enough to keep me going. So yeah, that's how I got into real estate.
So you started flipping houses. How did you make that transition into multifamily? And at what point did you figure out, hey, I can actually raise capital, leverage other people's money, and really scale this big time?
Yeah. So it was a full year of flipping houses before I even learned about other people's money. The first house, it was just me and one handyman. I couldn't even afford to hire a proper contractor. So me and one handyman in there in Florida summer with no AC, laying tile, doing the whole thing. And it was just an absolute learning experience. And all said and done, I made $13,000 and I turned around and I put that exactly into the second house and I did it all over again. And then finally someone's like, hey, have you heard of this thing called Bigger Pockets? And that was a real like wake up call to me because I wasn't seeking information at the time. I just was trudging along, doing it just through sheer stubbornness, I guess. And then I actually started listening to the podcast and getting education. And I heard about this thing called other people's money. And it's like, oh, if you want to scale this business, you can actually borrow money from other people and do multiple flips at the same time, do multiple renovation projects at the same time. So that was a real eye opener for me. And starting to go to, the local meetups, starting to meet people, asking family members if I can borrow money, these sorts of things. That's kind of how everyone really gets their start with this process. And as for how I got into multifamily, well, before I got into multifamily, I tried every single form of residential real estate investing. So started out with the flips, didn't know anything about real estate. So I figured I might as well get my real estate license because that's what people do if they work in real estate, right? You have to have your license. So I got my license and I started trying to work as a realtor. Absolutely hated that. I heard about this thing called wholesaling where you can make so much money in such a short period of time. So I decided to do a little guru mastermind course on wholesaling. I spent, I think, like $7,000, $8,000 on it. Never ended up wholesaling a house, but I did learn a whole lot about wholesaling. And I learned how much I hated that. I ended up having my biggest aha moment when I moved across from the east coast of Florida to the west coast. And rather than rent a place, I bought a 4-unit building. And I'd heard of this thing called house hacking. So I figured this is really, what I'll do. I'll eliminate my living expenses.
Were you able to get the FHA loan and do like the quadruplex with 5% down? Was that the strategy you used?
I did not even, you're talking about the 201k or the 20 something K loan. Yeah. I didn't even know about that at the time. I just literally went for the standard, FA or just, yeah, I didn't even have mortgage insurance and 20% down on it. Yeah. But I eliminated my housing expense. So for the first time, all of a sudden it's like, not only am I not paying for housing, but suddenly people are paying me to live where I was living. And I certainly made tons of mistakes. All my tenants knew that I was the owner of the building. I wouldn't have done that, but you have to learn some things the hard way. And so that was a real like, oh my gosh, moment for me. And then I was like, I need more of this. So I bought 2 more duplexes right out the gate. And so now I had a little 8-unit portfolio of rentals going. And eventually I actually moved out of the 4-unit building and I rented a different place, but I did Airbnb with 2 of the units. So I tried, and I know you're a big Airbnb guy, so I tried every single avenue of residential real estate investing that you could think of. And at the end of the day, I think the thing that appealed to me most was just the consistent passive income from long-term rentals. It was no ups and downs, no wild emotions about seasonality and stuff like that with the short term. It was just the check comes in every month. And I owned an A-class rental, a B-class rental, and a C-class rental. And the C-class came with so many headaches, and the B-class was pretty much fine, and the A-class was fantastic. So, I learned a lot about all the different types of tenants that you get and the different neighborhoods and everything through that experience. And my plan was to buy 10 more duplexes and get up to 20 units by myself. That was like my mental, I just told myself that's what I'm going to do. That's my new goal. And I had a conversation with a guy that I met through a Tampa area meetup. And it's such a shame. I actually don't remember this guy's name to this day. But he changed the course of my life because we just had a conversation on the phone and he said, 20 units. Why would you buy 20 units or why would you buy 10 duplexes? You could just buy a 20 unit building. And that was like, what do you mean you could buy a 20 unit building? He's like, yeah, multifamily. Like you could just buy a 20 unit building. And that was my holy crap moment. So I started reading about multifamily. I read the book Multifamily Millions by Dave Lindahl. I joined his mentorship program, moved to Arizona, met my business partner, and we've been buying up multifamily ever since. And today we're actually developing it. So quite a journey from one single fix and flip all the way to developing 100+ unit
Yep.
multifamily properties.
So I love what you just said there about why don't you just go bigger? Because I was reading this book. I don't know if you read it, by the founder of Blackstone. And in the book, he just keeps saying the same thing. It takes us just as much energy and time to do something small than it does to do something bigger. So why not shoot the stars, right? You're going to be spending all this time and effort anyways. Like, why not go bigger? And that was your aha moment. And I guess that's where you started scaling. So love your journey, really inspiring. And now you're even doing ground up development. So you've even shifted now from multifamily now to ground up, right?
So the name of my company is Nimble Capital Group, and we do try to stay true to that moniker as much as possible. We have a variety of different assets and different classes. Most of what we have done has been that traditional value add, buying a BC class apartment complex, putting some sort of value into it, holding it for the long term. But that's not always the sexiest form of real estate investing. And I would say the last 2 years, investor appetite for that kind of product has really died down, and it's ironic because I think right now we're in a time of the market cycle where those deals are actually coming back around. A lot of sellers are being forced to sell at a loss right now. And so this is a tremendous buying opportunity, but because so many people got burned in the last 2.5 years with those, floating rate debt loans and things like that, the investor appetite isn't quite there for like, oh, a multifamily deal. I'm scared, So the buying time is back around, but the investor appetite isn't there. And so the confidence for, if you told me I need to go find $10 million in 3 months to go buy this, 2 years ago, I would have said no problem. Today, so maybe different kind of products, different kind of deals. We have been heavily focusing on our development deals. We also have a commercial retail project. We also have a debt fund that pays out cash flow, that we buy raw land. So we do a little bit of everything. We are truly nimble. And for the investor, who seeks a different kind of return, we always have an option available for them.
And what's the current structure that you're raising capital? You mentioned you have a debt fund, so you actually have a fund, and I know I think your deals are set up as syndication. Can you just tell me a little bit about how you guys usually work? Is it on a deal by deal basis? Is it equity? Is it debt? What's that capital raising structure look like?
Yeah, so 99% of the time we're going to be doing a traditional deal by deal syndication. We have thought about going bigger with a fund and buying multiple assets in it, but really, there just hasn't been the deal flow the last 2 years to actually, make that a worthwhile thing. So when a deal comes around and you jump on it, it's a kind of a deal by deal situation. So we're going to be syndicating with your standard equity split, like a 70-30, 70 to the investor, 30 to us. There's always going to be a pref. And yeah, that's, it's kind of plug and play. I would say that if you talk to a lot of people in the industry, that's what they go for. In a development deal, there is a lot more meat on the bone, so to speak. So you will see more common things like a 60-40 or even higher, sometimes 50-50. We don't really do that. We like to provide for our investors. We think we're here to serve more than to benefit ourselves. So we're always going to pretty much do a 70-30. And just only recently have we started going into the SPV fund route, just to have that, right? Because for the last 2.5 years, multifamily doesn't cash flow anymore. I mean, these days, if you go out and get a deal with like a 6 or 7% interest rate and you want it to cash flow 6 or 7%, it's not going to happen. Not like it used to. So,
Yep.
You'd be lucky to cash
That's
flow.
the same problem we're encountering in the hotel side. It's more the deal flow than anything. Like, we've gone through 800 deals in the past 6 months. We've looked at absolutely everything that's on market. We're now going off market. We're doing agent outreach, and it's just hard to get these deals to pencil,
Right.
Especially with traditional financing. Like, they're not going to work. So we've been going a lot of, like, now we're trying to do a lot more creative finance offers. So we're just submitting offers on a low interest rate. These boomers have held these properties for years. So if you can maybe negotiate and get closer to their price, because their expectations of the price is also not even close to what they're even making in income. You ask for financials, oh, we don't have any. So how are you valuing this asset? Well, it's in a prime tourist destination. It's South Florida. It's here. this is worth 5 million because you can put up a building or you can do this, and this is just what it's worth. So it's been really hard to get sellers to these expectations. And what we're doing now is just trying to hit their price if they can come down to our terms. So we've been sending offers at like 3% interest only payments. I don't know if you guys have been playing around with seller finance or if you just always go the traditional route.
Absolutely. It's always something we look for, even when financing is good. But in order to make deals work in today's environment, whether it's multifamily or boutique hotels or whatever, 100% the thing that you need to seek out is creative financing. I mean, the debt markets are tough right now. We have had quite a bit of luck recently with seeking financing through private credit and non-traditional means. And that's been, it's out there, but you have to make the connections. You have to go look. You have to be networking constantly. And if you're doing all the right things, eventually the timing will line up and you'll speak to the right person who will have the product that helps you. And things that we've done 2 years ago, we were looking at properties like, I don't know, this must have been 3 years ago now. We were going to buy 2 properties at the same time. One of them didn't come through, but 3 years later, the seller remembers us and she's finally ready to sell. Her father passed away, and she's like, I want to get rid of this asset. I remember those people. Well, she could owner finance the whole thing if she wants to us. So, that's number one priority for us. So seeds that we laid a long time ago are going to come back around now. And some element of it is just consistency and sticking with the plan and being patient and laying seeds and waiting. So I do feel a bit for people who are trying to get into real estate right now. It is a very, very, very different market than it was even just 2-3 years ago, right? And 2-3 years ago, you couldn't make a mistake. Right up until July of 2022, you looked like a genius no matter what you were doing, right? And that's just not what's happening today.
So I guess the big thing here is patience. How are you able to just stay patient all these months, all these years when you can't really find deals? Are you doing other stuff? Are you making income from other stuff? Because that's the tough part, right? As general partners is how do you, if you're not buying deals where you're not making money, if you're not raising capital, you're not getting all these fees. So what's the balance here between like being really patient, not making any stupid moves and not buying the wrong deal and like making sure you're still going to be getting cash flow for all your expenses?
I love that question. And I'll tell you why. So the answer is it's probably 2 or 3 part answer for you. But the first answer is passive income. Yes. At this point, I am heavily invested into my own deals. I've put a lot of my own capital into my own deals. And at this point, I've generated a relatively healthy passive income. So whether I get off the couch or not, I have enough money to sustain a pretty basic lifestyle, right? And at least not worry that the lights are going to come off and there's going to be food on the table. It's good, right? Certainly not where I want it to be. I think down the road, my goal is going to be, how do I get my passive income up to 400,000 or 500,000, right? Then you're really chilling. I'm not chilling yet, but I want to be. So we'll get there. But for now, I am heavily invested in my own deals, and that generates passive income. And then that allows me to go and live my life, at least without worry about, is there at least money coming into the bank account every single month? Now, what did I do once I realized the environment we're in? Well, I basically tie it back to the beginning. I said, this is a very interesting time for real estate, for capital raising. How do I stay patient? There was a phrase in 2023. People were saying this in 2023. I don't know if you remember, but they were saying survive until 25. Well, here we're in 2025, and the market, lo and behold, is still a little bit dicey comparatively, right? But everybody back then was saying survive until 25, survive until 25. And I was like, survive until 25? Screw that. I'm going to thrive until 2025. So I packed up my whole operation and I said, I can raise capital from anywhere in the world as long as I have access to the internet. And so I'm going to go travel. And that's what I did. I went to 19 countries. I spent a month living in every country, and I would go hit little countries in between. And I made a full circle around the world. And in that time, I was still able to raise $5.5 million. And I did it working basically 4 days a week, about 4 hours a day, due to the systems that I had set up, which I'd taken from my time in high tech and just kind of applied it onto capital raising. And it allowed me to really kind of embrace that lifestyle of freedom.
That's crazy. So how many hours a week were you working as you were traveling? Was this a full 40-hour work week, or was it more like 10?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, it would never be 40 because I only work 4 days a week. So I always took Friday off that week. Now, ironically enough, I do have to say, since I've come back to the US the last 5 months, I am an absolute workaholic. I work probably 10 hours a day every single day, no matter what. But during that travel time, I was working 4 days a week. And the system that I have set up means that by the time an investor speaks to me, they've already gone through layers of qualification. They've spoken to my SDR, who's like qualified them. So I already know how much they're looking to invest, when they're looking to invest it by, which deal they're looking to invest, if they're accredited, all of these things. And I have background information on them. And then they speak to me and at a very specified time in my calendar. So they get booked into my calendar. There's like a probably about 85% show up rate. And I have all this information about them. So my life is as simple as wake up, look at my calendar, and if I have calls today, those are the calls. That's when I'm working. And if I don't have calls today, that's when I'm not working.
So what was your favorite part you visited during these 12 months?
Um, my top two have to be Peru and South Africa. Um, Peru for adventure. It's such an unbelievable place where it's got deserts and the coast and the beach and the jungle and the mountains, and you can just do everything in Peru. Obviously, go to Machu Picchu, but you can go down to the sand dunes, and the food is fantastic. The people are wonderful.
Food is amazing.
Yeah, I loved Peru. What a place for adventure. I was only there for a month, and I felt like I couldn't do everything. I couldn't even make it down to like Arequipa in the south and stuff like that.
Did you hike to Machu Picchu, or you take the train?
Oh, no, well, I took the train. I took the train, yeah.
Okay.
But I'll tell you this. Most people who go to Machu Picchu, they get like a super cloudy, like socked in kind of day. You can't see anything. It was sun, beauty the whole time. You could see everything when I was there. And I happened to be there on the solstice, which is like the place was created basically for the purpose of the solstice. So it was a really just sort of magical moment. And we had the place entirely to ourselves. It wasn't crowded at all. A llama tried to bite my ass. It was a really magical experience.
And you met your girlfriend while you were on this trip, right? Where was that again?
Well, we met the first month in Mexico. So I was traveling with a group of people, but we actually started dating probably about the second month in Colombia. So yeah.
Awesome. And now you're back. So you're back full steam. Right. I know you created a capital raising mastermind. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that, and also maybe give us a little quick masterclass on capital raising fundamentals for anybody that's wanting to get into the space or that's already a real estate investor and just wants to take their journey to the next level, because your money only goes too far. I realized that as well with my own cash. I bought a couple of deals, did really well, but I'm like, what's next? Until I don't sell this deal or refi out, I'm just sitting on my hands waiting because I can't buy any more deals, right? So key here is being able to unlock this next level, which is capital raising. And for anything, really, I think capital raising is probably one of the most important skills you can have, not just for real estate, but if you can raise capital, you really can do anything in life, start any business, do any venture. So
that's exactly right. And I don't just work with people in multifamily. I work with people such as yourself who are doing boutique hotels as well. And if you can raise capital, you can do so much. I think the trendy thing at the moment, more than anything else, is buying businesses, right? Due to the Cody Sanchez's of the world, raising money for a business has never been easier. The appetite for that is massive. And the appetite for multifamily real estate is a lot less than it used to be, although it is still there. And I'm, proof in the pudding that you can raise capital still in today's environment. So yeah, I'll break down my model a little bit for you as far as the coaching and capital raising. like I said before, I worked in high-tech sales. And at the first role I had in the company, I was an SDR, or sales development representative. So my job was to make hundreds of calls a day, just really high volume, take the leads that we got from marketing, and basically qualify them and set a highly qualified appointment in the calendar for the person above me who was an AE or account executive. Ultimately, I was very good at that and they promoted me to AE. And then it was my job to actually take the qualified appointments and close the deal. But the whole process would take, roughly about a month or two sales cycles, sometimes longer. But I took that model and I imprinted it onto what I do now for capital raising. So I know that not everybody who's just getting into capital raising is going to have the budget for running ads, but we find that that is the most effective way to generate a high volume of leads. So we run ads on Facebook and Meta, on Instagram. And typically when we have a deal, like a 506c accredited only kind of deal, we get a much higher response from those kind of things as opposed to if we just were advertising like a lead magnet, something like that. That would be a super wide net and pretty low quality of investor. But if you have a 506c deal, and you're actually showing some sort of projections on the advertisement, then you are very likely to get a highly qualified accredited investor who wants to invest specifically in that deal within a soon time frame. So
What does the ad look like? Is it just a photo of the property and then IRR, cash on cash, equity multiple, some copyright, contact me, or schedule time on my calendar?
yeah,
That's the first question. Second question, who are you targeting? So if you can maybe break down the ad structure and then who you're targeting as your investor and who have you seen are the most receptive? Is this doctors? Is this lawyers? Is this sales guys? Who's your ideal investor or your investor avatar?
so this is a little bit of a controversial topic. I personally don't care that much about investor avatar. A lot of people swear by this, and I even teach my students how to find their investor avatar. I have a whole video module about this, but personally, I'll talk to anyone. If they're looking to invest, I will talk to them. But that's because I'm really confident in my social skills and my ability to find connection with anyone, regardless of age or circumstance or whatever. You just got to be really personable and make the connection, create that human relationship, and you can kind of get them from point A to point B. So we don't have a very specific investor avatar. I would say more recently, we've been doing some geofencing because we have an office in downtown Phoenix now. That we want to meet investors in person and actually get Phoenix-based investors so that we can really foster that relationship, meet them in person, have them come to our office, take them out to lunch, and actually foster, an in-person relationship, because obviously that is much preferable to Zoom or even a virtual, phone call only situation. However, we've closed tons of investors with phone call only who we've never met in person, who don't know what we look like or anything like that, right? So it's all possible. Now, as for what the ad looks like, you are correct. Typically, they're going to say something about the return, something about the IRR. You have to be really careful with Meta. And one thing that I really teach to all my students is that I don't want you to be a jack of all trades, right? So I am not an asset manager and I'm not a marketing guy. I'm a sales guy. At the end of the day, the thing that allowed me to go travel and allow me to have so much free time and so much freedom is because I'm really, really good at one thing. And if I was spending all my time thinking about marketing, I would not have been able to go enjoy the travel like I did that, right? So I pay a marketing company and they are very good at what they do. I'm happy to, create a connection for any of my students to my marketing company. They're not super cheap. I will, be the first person to say that. They're not cheap, but they are very good at what they do. And they control the ads and they optimize, they'll make like 5 different sets of creative because Facebook is really picky about you try to run an ad and then it doesn't get approved or it runs for a little while and then whatever. So they're always creating new creatives and they're always optimizing. But for the most part, you have some catchy little title. And then, you say something about the returns. And then the first thing that we really, really want to find out is are our investors accredited, right? Because if they're not, they just can't invest in that deal. It's 506c syndication. They're not able to invest. So we really want to know.
So are they going from an ad to a landing page and then to a form that they're filling out to answer some questions?
Typically, the form is straight off the ad. So Basically,
Inside of
yeah. So we have a couple of things. So you could call it like a landing page, sure, but it's basically you click the ad, it takes you straight to the form. We get their phone number, we get their name, email, we get how much are they looking to invest usually. So we have like kind of a drop down of like 50K, 100K, 250, whatever. And then we really want to know if they're accredited. A lot of times people don't know if they're accredited. So you might make an option to say like 200K individual income, 300K with spouse income, 100 or $1 million of net worth excluding primary residence, right? All of those are the exact same thing. They all answer the exact same question, but you know that if somebody picks one of them, that they don't really know what it means to be accredited or not. So if I just put the only question is, are you accredited, yes or no? Chances are they don't even know, right? But they might be. So we give them the options to basically tell us, are they accredited? Now, they are prompted to book a call immediately with me through that process. How many of them do it? Not most. They're not really ready yet. They need some more trust building. They want to do some more information. And people these days, they're just more hesitant to get on the phone. Social interaction isn't what it used to be. So we need to build that level of comfort. So this is where your standard marketing comes in, right? Your podcasts, your Instagrams, your content marketing, all these kinds of things, creating ebooks, creating lead magnets, sending email campaigns, whatever you can do. Now you have them in your system, in your CRM. You have to stay on top of them. You have to continue feeding them information to build the trust with, hey, that's a real person. That's a real company. This is what they do. I know what his voice sounds like. I know what his face looks like. I feel like I know this person, even though I've never spoken to them. And you really got to stay on top of them like that. Now, if they don't book a
so
call,
approximately how many touch points have you found is like, all right, after 7 or 10, or is it more months, or is it more touch points? Like they've heard about me, they've seen 20 emails. Now they're more ready to really get on a call with me. Have you measured this? And also I have another follow-up question is, have you measured how much it costs you to get an investor? Or let's say if you per million raised, like how much do you spend on marketing?
So it has changed with time. So yes, and yes to all of those questions. So let's dissect them. We used to have a very low cost of capital. It used to be like sub 2%. Like we were raising from the amount of spend that we were doing on our marketing to how much capital we were raising, it was like significant. These days it's less so. The last year and a half, investor appetite has really died down, particularly leading up to the election last year. Almost nobody was investing. It was just kind of waiting around, seeing what's going to happen. So these things are cyclical, right? And they change with time. And also they change with deals. Like I'm sure if we had like a brand new hot, sexy deal, all of a sudden, people would be really interested. But if you're advertising the same deal for a year or whatever, then you get kind of, a deal exhaustion sort of situation happening. So there's all sorts of factors that play into this. We end up spending roughly between $30 and $40 is kind of our average as cost per accredited lead. So the CPAL is what we call it. So that's really kind of our main benchmark. And if that goes down, that's really good. If it's sub 30, then we're pretty happy. On a monthly basis, advertising is tricky because you really got to have enough of a budget to get enough data to understand what's happening. If you start with a small budget, you really don't have the specifics of it. But that's about kind of what we're spending at the moment, is about $30 to $40 per accredited lead. Now, as for your first question, it's actually really tough to gauge, and we're not paying attention too much to the number of touches, because the thing that we've found is in the beginning, when they first give you their information, that's when they're the hottest. No matter what you say, no matter what you do about it. So as soon as they come into the system, while it's fresh in their mind, I want my assistant, my SDR, to call them, qualify them, and book an appointment with me like as fast as possible. Because sometimes we have people who've been in our system for a year, and they've seen the emails, they've never responded, but they've slowly been opening them, and then they come back around, Or for example, like our podcast is relatively newer. We've recorded like 15 episodes. I think maybe at time of this recording, about 6 or 7 have been released. But having that weekly email that goes out, they open it, they listen to the podcast, it builds trust, and they might reach back out, even though they've been in our system for like 2 years already at this point. So all of these things sort of compound over time, and it could be a very long cycle or a very, very quick sales cycle. It really doesn't, it could be either. So for me, what matters the most is that they come into our system, they're hot, it's fresh in their mind, they get qualified by my assistant. So there's one layer of trust. Then they speak to me. That's the second layer of trust. The first call is typically going to be just like an intro, right? Like just a phone call, tell them about the deal. And then the second call, I'm always going to try to book while I'm still on the first call. Now, that would either be with my business partner. Maybe they say, hey, there's 2 people in this operation. I'd like to speak to the other one. Sure, we'll schedule a call with him. Or I'm really interested in the deal. Can we do a screen share? Can we do a Zoom? Can you present it to me? Because what I find is that if you send somebody a deal, the chances of them actually opening that email are low. If you don't leave a guaranteed second step, if you have the first call and it's like great and like everything, the vibes were high, everything was great, and they say, great, yeah, send me the deck, I'll look it over, and let's talk next week. You've lost them right there in that moment. It's too late, already gone, right? So that's not going to be how that works. So you have to have the next.
Usually you always do a regular call, right? Because from the trainings we've done, you actually don't even show them a deck. You can walk them through a deal pretty much on the phone without even seeing each other's face. And then you're just emailing them the deck in case they want it. But most of the time, like you're pretty much, I've heard you close calls with the single call where the guy's just like ready to invest. So why have you chosen this path versus, I think a lot of maybe new capital raisers or operators are trying to just go with like an incredible deck that's 300 pages long, and they jump on the Zoom call and are walking them through every single slide. And by the end of it, they don't even invest. So what's the key here, and why has this process been effective for you? Because I wouldn't have thought you could just do a regular call and that's going to work. It's like.
So the answer is human psychology. There's really no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And having a beautiful deck is important, and having, a really nicely laid out presentation, all of that stuff is important, but you also got to understand who you're pitching to and what are their motivations. So if you're pitching to like a family office, for example, that's a very, very sophisticated investor. And to this day, we haven't really worked with family offices. Almost 99% of our raised capital has come from your standard retail guy. Somebody who is just finding out that you can invest in something that's not the stock market, that there are alternatives to that. Maybe they've done a couple syndications, or maybe they're just finding out about syndications. And they need some handholding. They need some, education to get comfortable with this. But they'll invest 50, 100K at a time. Now, question, if would I rather do 10 of those guys or a family office for $1 million? I would definitely do the family office for $1 million. That would be a lot less headaches for me, right? But that's just not been sort of our model and what has got us to where we are today. Maybe in the future. So back to the point is,
I think it's got it's good and bad on that family office topic. When you go family office route, you're going to have way better returns for them. They're going to be on top of absolutely everything, agreements. So I think it's a double-edged sword. They want probably control of the deal. They're going to put a lot of different clauses and things that are regular retail investors not going to give you. So yes, they might bring a lot more money, but it might also have its consequences,
terms.
Right?
Yeah, it's terms. So they chances are they won't just be a regular LP. If they're going to write you a $5 or a $10 million check, they'll probably want a co-GP of some sort. They'll probably want a hefty portion of the split. Their money comes with terms, and understandably it should, as if they're giving you that much money. Right. And with a family office too, it's really a long game. It's about getting in there and building the relationship and not rushing it, and like doing it slowly over time, making them really comfortable with you and who you are and what you're doing. And at the end of the day, if you've really, really nurtured that relationship well, then they're going to invest because of you, not because of the specific deal. Obviously, the specific deal is important. Now, if we extrapolate what I just said and put it back to the retail guy, that's why my model has been so successful, right? Because it's not about this pretty deck with all of these numbers with, 20 return, 30 return, whatever. They're going to forget that. It's a really good way to get them in the door, right? If they're analyzing two ads on the internet, the one that has the higher return is probably going to get them in the door, but it's not going to be the reason they invest. You need to make sure that you are not forgettable, because chances are the second that they click one of these ads, they're going to be followed around the internet by every single other syndicator who's also doing these kinds of ads, right? And some of them are going to have better returns than yours. Some of them, the vast majority of them, are all going to say the same thing. They're all going to say 2x return, 5-year hold, 17 IRR, 7% cash on cash. And I bet if somebody is listening who has been in this space before, they have advertised or had a deal with those exact projected returns, right? It's just the industry standard at this point, right? So how do you separate yourself from the crowd? And the way you do that is by having a story. Having a story about yourself, as you had me tell my story in the beginning of this podcast. That's what I tell my students to. Imagine you're on a podcast and the host just asked you this. Your investors want to know, why should I invest with you? What is special about you compared to any other guy that I could be investing with? What's your story? Why are you memorable? What makes you unique, right? And conversely, you need to also have a story about the deal. Why is this deal better? Why is that market better? What is the story behind it? Why are you buying it now? Did you get owner financing? Does the property have fire damage and units, whatever? There's all sorts of special things that can make this deal unique and can make it stand out from the crowd. And so you don't need to be on Zoom to do that. You need to have, be a painter with your words and tell the story of yourself and tell the story of your deal and be memorable to these investors.
So storytelling for capital raising, that's really what it comes down to. And I think it's really for anything, really. We've been finding a lot of success as well with like social media posts when there's a hook and a story. Like that's what people are sharing the most. And I think ever since like the start of time, like humans just gravitate towards stories. That's what they're going to remember. So I love how you painted that. And I just love how you structure it. So really quickly before we wrap up here, what does freedom mean to you? I always like asking this question because freedom means a lot of different things for different people. So if you were to sum up what freedom means, what would that be for you?
Freedom means, it's a good question. I think about this a lot and I talk about this a lot because I talk with a lot of other entrepreneurs. And I think as entrepreneurs, sometimes the happiness is kind of it's an elusive thing, right? Because we're always chasing, we're always wanting more, we're always trying to build, we're always like, every time I speak to an entrepreneur, one of the first things I ask them, especially on my podcast, is how do you sleep? Because most entrepreneurs give up good sleep, right? When you wake up at 2 a.m. and you've got all these ideas and things, and you're constantly trying to move the goalpost forward. You get one thing, you think that'll be the thing that'll bring me happy, and then you move the goalpost again, and you're like, well, I could go bigger, I could do more, I could achieve this, I could achieve that, I could keep achieving more. You yourself, right? You've had a successful exit, and here you are. You're like, no, I'm not done. I'm going to build a whole new thing. I'm going to build a bigger thing than the last thing, right? And I can relate to that heavily. So, what does freedom mean? You could stop moving the goalpost right now and be happy. But I think to me, freedom is the ability to choose your next goalpost. Freedom is, I have a lot that I'm happy with, but I can do more. I can do bigger things. I could go there. It's the ability to believe in yourself and believe in your capabilities of, I'm just going to keep making bigger things and making better things happen in my life. And, that's just how I'm going to live. So, I said, I'm going to raise capital and I'm going to travel. I did it. That's freedom, right? And now I live at home. Now I like to say that I traveled all the way around the world to decide how much I like being at home. So now freedom for me is hanging out on my couch and
Staying at home.
Yes, growing some tomatoes in my garden. I'm happy, right? So that's what freedom means.
I can relate so much to that, dude, because I've done a fair bit of travel as well. I've been to like over 40 countries, and like I can truly say that I'm the happiest and I love travel. Don't get me wrong, I love traveling, but I'm the happiest when I'm back home in my office with my routine. I have my habits. I wake up and meditate versus being on this constant move. So that's exactly what freedom is. If you feel like traveling, well, you do it. But if you feel like sitting at home, that's fine as well. And that brings whatever makes you happy, So I love that, dude. Thanks for adding so much value. What are the top 3 books you would say have made a significant impact on your mindset or on your life that you would recommend to anybody listening to this podcast?
Sure.
And maybe if you have one that's around storytelling, capital raising, sales, and it might not have to be related to that as well.
Yeah. Well, so the first one, it just has to be Multifamily Millions by Dave Windahl. I mean, that's the one that really expanded my brain. Now, I highly recommend that book to anyone. Is the information in it up to date to today's standards? No, it's not. But if you want to learn the in and outs of general practices of multifamily, I mean, I owe a lot to that book. There may be better ones, more accurate ones, more, whatever about multifamily today. The second book that changed my life significantly has to be Miracle Morning. I don't always follow through with it. In fact, there have been phases of my life where I haven't done it at all. And there's phases of my life where I'm pretty good about it. But I find that if I get up and I do, he recommends like 6 things that you do.
6
6
a.m. wake up.
Yeah. I'm
going to have to call you out on that because you almost didn't wake up for this podcast because it was too early. So I've got to call you out.
You want to talk about lifestyle design, right? Doing a podcast at 7:30 a.m. is not in my lifestyle plan, but I appreciate you. So I'm here, right? Yeah. So Miracle Morning is a really, really good book. It changed sort of the trajectory of my whole day, and becoming an entrepreneur and creating structure and putting my mindset into the most productive version of myself. And it's really amazing because you don't have to believe it, but if you just do the things, you're probably going to feel really good. It's kind of like, you don't have to know why, you just do it and it'll have the result you're looking for. That's kind of the whole point behind mentorship as well. Just sometimes you need somebody to tell you what to do and get how to get it done, and they'll tell you, right? And then the last book has to be 10X is Easier Than 2X by Dan Sullivan. Yeah. That book, I mean, really, if you break it down, that book is just the 80-20 principle, but it's crafted in such an unbelievable way about how much bullshit there is in your life and how much you could just be doing less and achieving more. And I love that, right? I'm all about doing less and achieving more. So 10X is Easier Than 2X. Absolutely fantastic book. Made my brain explode. Couldn't recommend it enough.
I love that, dude. Thanks for sharing. So how can people connect with you? For anybody that's raising capital, tell us about your mastermind. What's the website for that? Because honestly, guys, you got to just sign up. Michael's been fundamental and has been such a great mentor to me in my capital raising journey. But yeah, you can tell us about that, Michael.
Yeah, absolutely. So my capital raising mentorship is called Capital Raising Pro. It is not actually a community. It's just one-on-one mentorship with me. I do have a video course that I expect people to go through, but the true value is just one-on-one sessions where I'm teaching you how to pitch. We'll have me pretend to be the investor and you pitch me. And that's where I think I give the absolute most value to my students. So capitalraisingpro.com, and you can schedule a call with me. I'll even give you the call booking link so you can put it in the show notes. And then Nimble Capital Group is my investment company. So nimblecapitalgroup.com. If you are looking to invest into real estate or cash flowing assets, you can contact us there.
Now, I haven't worked out a referral fee with Michael, but if you guys sign up, I'll make sure to mention it so that I can work something out with them. No, I'm just kidding. But thanks a lot, Michael. You've been amazing, and thank you for adding so much value.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.